Welcome back. All right, so reality versus non-reality. So one of these videos I'm recording for posting on the channel while we're on holidays. And of course, it has to be something that's kind of timeless. And what's more timeless than debates over, well, what's he really thinking? What's really going on? So we'll go through the reality side of things and then the non-reality side of things. And this is me being honest. And of course, there's people who are going to leave a comment below of, well, he's not actually being honest because. So we'll go through this. I have no idea how long this is going to take. I don't use a script. There's no teleprompter anywhere. It's always an adventure. So first off, when it comes to the jerseys I use for videos, I try to pick the jerseys I think are fun, something I haven't worn in a while. So in this case, it's Golden Seals, right? California Golden Seals. I'm so excited that I have these jerseys. When I was a kid growing up, there were a lot of teams that had already gone by the wayside before I became a fan. Cleveland, California, Kansas City, and then of course the Rockies would follow. And so I never thought I would have jerseys of any of those teams. I have jerseys of all those teams. That is so fun. And maybe at some point in time, they'll actually release an Adidas version of a Cleveland jersey. I can cross my fingers and hope for something that'll never happen. But when I'm picking jerseys for a video, I try to go with ones I think, well, that's fun, or something I haven't worn in a while. And when I'm doing a recap, I think, okay, so which team won tonight that I think that was an impressive win, or I think that was an unexpected win. And that's why I think when people are trying to track which ones I'm wearing and all that, that's where it gets kind of a little bit off. Like 2018, 2019, there were Tampa fans that were mad that I didn't wear Tampa jerseys. I didn't wear Tampa jerseys because it was never a surprise when they won. Usually there was a surprise, so I would wear Tampa jerseys sparsely, but I was wearing them a lot in news videos. I was doing a lot of videos about Tampa, and I was like, well, for the reviews, and now, of course, recaps. But I try to pick one that I think's fun or something different, and I don't track which teams I'm wearing more than others. I know when I've been wearing a team a lot. Like recently, I've been wearing Boston a lot, so I did the Boston video today, and I had to say, no, don't wear Boston for this. And so I wore Montreal, and we'll talk about it later on in the video. And then when I pick the jerseys I'm going to wear, I will see the comments of, well, clearly he hates insert name of team here because he doesn't wear it. Clearly, he is secretly cheering for this team because he's wearing their jerseys a lot. It is remarkable, the messages that people pick up on that I'm not sending, that I'm not aware of myself, that have never crossed my mind. But it is the comment section, and it is what it is. And of course, I've had people over the years tell me, don't pay attention to the comment section. If I didn't pay attention to the comment section, I wouldn't have made some of the friends on the channel that I have. So we're going down to California. I'm going to see people who are actually commenters on the channel, and I know them, and it's kind of fun. Now, playlists are fun. Now, this, I went to Yvonne, and I asked her for feedback on, where reality doesn't necessarily match what people perceive. And she said playlists. You had to talk about playlists. Alphabetical. It's the way I do a lot of the playlists. Reverse alphabetical if it's with all 32 teams. And then there's times I just do a random order. And the random order seems to really make people mad. My favorite is when I'm going in alphabetical order and I'm like, okay, Anaheim, Arizona, Boston, Buffalo. And then in the Buffalo video, somebody will say, can you do Toronto next? Yeah, if they were Toronto, maybe. If there wasn't a Calgary, Carolina, Chicago, and a Colorado, and a Columbus, sure, but they're not Toronto, they're Toronto, and since they're that far down, no, it's alphabetical, so I don't even answer those comments, but I've always found them humorous, and it's just I don't control the alphabet yet. That's something I'm working on. And then the comments will be, he's leaving this team for last. He doesn't like this team, so he's leaving them for last. You don't save the worst for last. That's not how it works. You don't go, hey, give me the ice cream. I'm going to finish with the liver. That's not how that works. And he picked that team first because sometimes it's, well, he picks this team first because it's going to get a lot of views. He picks this team because this and this and this. Full transparency. When I'm doing a random order, I like to make sure that there's a Canadian team every 4 or 5. That way it works out. There's a Canadian, because I know the Canadian teams will likely generate more views than a lot of the others. But that's it. That's as far as it goes. That's as far as the premeditated part of it goes. When it's in alphabetical order, I know if I got Toronto and Vancouver back to back, those are going to do very well. But I don't skip anybody else. One thing that I made clear when I created this channel and I started to take off as a hockey channel, it was important to me to report on all 32 teams and try to do it as equally as possible. Yes, there will be Vancouver content because I'm in that market. I'm not too far from Vancouver, and I've been a Canuck fan going back till, the early 80s. But I like to report on all 32 teams. There are definitely teams in the NHL that are underreported on, not covered enough. So I like to make sure that I'm taking care of that. And it's not about the views for that. It's okay if I get 4,000 views on a Carolina video, but I get 12,000 views on a Toronto video. That 4,000 views on the Carolina video might generate more subscribers than the 12,000 for the Toronto video, because Carolina fans might go, hey, these guys talking about us, we don't normally get talked about. I'm using Carolina as an example because in the beginning, Carolina was one of those teams that I noticed just did not draw. Carolina, Arizona, Dallas, there are certain ones, and definitely the Southern teams. But again, those Southern teams also don't get the same amount of coverage. So I feel like it's a good balance. It's not always about the view counts. The channel's track record seems to indicate that the most views doesn't necessarily mean the most gained subscribers. Now, magnets is one of the weird ones, and I've always had people going, wait, people get mad about the magnets you use? Yeah, they absolutely do. I like to use various magnets, and I like to have various logos. I like to have as many different logos as possible. Like, I don't use the editing software that most YouTubers do. I don't have, green screen. I'm not doing a bunch of video editing. So I figure, it's the little things. It's making sure that the whiteboards are in presentable condition. It's making sure that I've got as many different magnets as possible. And to make sure that I switch things up a little bit with how things look, right? So that's why I'm mentioning this in a video where I have no magnets on the board whatsoever. Why do you pick Islanders? That's so weird. I'm a Rangers fan. I'm offended. See, there you go. But yeah, there are people who get mad at me. That it's wrong to use that logo because it's disrespectful. It's a logo that represents an era that we don't want to look back on. I've been told that about the Toronto one. That's why I don't use the Toronto one from the Harold Ballard era, even though that was a logo they wore in the 90s, the 2000s, when they had some very successful seasons. But again, I get it, so I don't use that logo nearly as much. And yeah, there are others that the comment will be made. Or, well, the colors on that are bad, so I don't know why you're using that, because we haven't used those colors in a long time. It's the weirdest thing. It's a magnet. And yet, there will be those who say he will use that magnet just to drive us nuts. There are times where, yes, somebody will get mad at me for using magnet. I'm like, that's weird. I'm using it again. I'm using it a few times over the next couple of weeks, because that is bizarre. But that's as far as that goes. And then I just kind of, to me, it's just kind of one of those things that I kind of laugh off and I move on. Now, the idea of me wearing jerseys and hockey clothes. Now, I'm putting clothes on there because I have pants, t-shirts, hats. I have had almost any kind of clothing you can imagine. I'm pretty sure I had hockey underwear when I was a little kid. Pretty sure. One of my pictures when I was a little kid, I was wearing an Edmonton Oilers jersey. It wasn't really, it was the Oilers colors and it just had Edmonton across the front, but I knew what it was. And so it's kind of weird to me now that as a grown-up, seeing people saying, well, you can't wear that team because you're a fan of this team. Well, when I was a kid, I wore Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton. I didn't care. I didn't think it was a big deal. I just liked hockey, so I would wear whatever. Now, the thing that's funny is that as I got older and I started buying jerseys, I would say I was wearing Montreal in public. My favorite ever was, I was wearing Montreal in public. I'm a Boston fan, and somebody was driving by and yelled out the window, "Montreal sucks." And I turned around and went, "Yeah, they do. Woohoo!" And right? But I still was okay with wearing Montreal gear. I still was fine with wearing a hat and a jersey that were Montreal Canadiens, because I think the Montreal Canadiens have a really nice looking outfit. And so I don't care. It's not important to me. It's just a shirt. It's just a jersey. However, on the channel I get, and I got this today, and this is part of the reason why this video is being done right now, is a real Bruins fan wouldn't wear Habs. A real Canucks fan would not wear an Oilers jersey. Wait, the Canucks won tonight and you're not wearing their jersey? Pfft, what kind of fan are you? Well, it's a recap video and there were 10 games tonight there, dingus. So I'm a fan that thinks that, yeah, it's great the Canucks won, but I'm going to move on to something else. It's one of those really odd things, because I did have teams I hated before the channel came into existence. Now I don't. I'm watching every game. I'm watching every team. It has at least smoothed out any hate I've had. Are there teams I prefer to see win? Sure. Do I get really mad when other teams win? No. Did I used to? Yeah. When Boston or Vancouver were knocked out of the playoffs up until probably the early 2000s when that would take place, I would need a day. I'd need a little bit of time. There were times with Vancouver that it might take a little bit longer than that. I might be kind of bitter for a while, but that's good. I realized somewhere along the way, okay, teams I cheer for don't win, and that's what I expect. So that's part of the reason why Bruins fans will get irritated when I say, well, we'll see what happens in the playoffs about this current run, because I've seen stories like this before when it comes to Boston as a fan, and when they win the President's Trophy, it doesn't normally end well. But if they win the President's Trophy, I'm proud of them, and we'll see what happens this year. The President's Trophy is not always a curse or a jinx, so maybe this year would be different. But I don't believe in that. I don't believe in the idea that if you're a real fan of Team A, you're not allowed to wear Team B. You're a real Rangers fan, you'd never wear Devils gear. You're a real Islanders fan, you wouldn't wear Rangers gear. Well, clearly you're not a Sens fan because you're wearing Leafs gear. It's exhausting. And for me, again, talking about all 32 teams, I don't think that's right. I don't think it's right that a Montreal fan would come in and go, why don't you ever wear Habs gear? And me to go, I can't stand them. Well, these jerseys, but I don't wear them. Yeah. The one thing is when I go out in public, well, I don't really wear jerseys now when I go out in public very often. And if I do, I make sure that it's a team that I root for, because it can get awkward if somebody's like, hey, you cheer for, okay, it's cool, me too. And it's like, I'll play along, but I don't. So, yeah. Then there's the video topics. So whenever I do a video on a team that's hot or cold, it's a hot streak or it's a cold streak. Those generally don't last. They will stop. It's not like a team's won 15 in a row, but it's going to be 50 in a row, and THG did a video on them, so now they're going to lose their next game. They were going to win 50 straight. Not really how things work. But the idea that, well, he's going to jinx whatever team he's doing the video on, or if it's a cold streak, he's going to turn things around and it's going to be the reverse jinx, it's just so weird, because I don't think of it that way. I usually will take a look at the standings. I'll look at a team that might be hot or cold, and especially if it's a team we're not talking about right now, I will decide, that's a really interesting topic. I should discuss that. And then it becomes a video, and there it is. And I don't think, I can't do this. They're on a winning streak. If I do this, they're going to lose. I don't understand. They're never going to lose a game again if I don't do. It's not a thing. If I had any effect on outcomes of games. The only superstition I have is I still do not wear jerseys of teams I cheer for previews. I just don't, unless they're against each other, and I'm not worried about the jinx idea. So on some level in my brain, there's still that little bit of sports psychology, if you want to call it that, but it's ridiculous too. There's no reason I shouldn't be able to do that, but again, coming back here, if I wear a Canucks jersey for a preview, I'm like, this is cool, and then they lose, you jinxed them. And I've seen that with, I thought we were going to win tonight, but see, look, he's wearing a Minnesota jersey, so clearly they're going to lose. Okie dokie. And then the last one too, because again, when I was talking to Yvonne before I made this one, she said, people will get mad about the order in which you say things. They will get mad about things you say or don't say. And it's one of those weird things. So again, I don't have a script, never have, never will. That's one of those promises I make to people, which means that if I lose my train of thought, I start over. Usually I will start over. There's times where I'm like, I'm too deep into this, I got to keep going. And you guys can see the body language when I'm like, keep going, do it live. But I do say what I think and feel. If you hear it in a video, it's real. So like, after the Toronto Maple Leafs lost against Montreal, I was impassioned in my belief that Toronto had really screwed themselves over and that there was no reason they shouldn't have been able to beat Montreal other than they'd kind of beaten themselves. And I wasn't doing that to discredit Montreal. They had a good run. They took advantage of what they had to. But I felt like Toronto had that series. They're up 3-1. And what in the world? This team should be better than this. But there were accusations of, he doesn't actually feel this way. He's kissing up to Toronto fans. And it's one of those things that I can't really get around. Like, so if I don't say nice things, then it's going to be, see, he really hates him. And if I do say nice things, then it's, he's saying nice things, but he's only saying it because. But this is the truth. What you hear from me on this channel, what you hear from me in video, is really how I feel. I really thought the Canucks would make the playoffs this year, but early in the season I went, never mind, this team is brutal. And it was during that losing streak to start the season that I realized this team wasn't going anywhere. And I didn't put it on the coach. I didn't put it on the current GM either. I put this on, Benning created a team that just is not good enough. Alvin hasn't had the amount of time necessary, nor the cap space necessary to fix it. And Bruce Boudreau is a great guy. He cannot milk more wins out of this team than he did last year. It's not going to happen. And so that was right away what I was thinking off the start of the season. And so when, yes, I did think they'd make the playoffs, and now they're not going to. One thing that I think is important is to acknowledge that, your opinions will change over time. My opinions of which teams I cheer for change all the time. Opinions on various things will change all the time. So I try my best to give you guys all the information I can while editing out any curse words that may have come out of my mouth when the camera's not on. And, tell you guys how I really feel about things. So the impassioned videos are genuine. It's 100% me. It's 100% genuine. And it's one of the reasons why I make sure I do everything on one take and then post it for all you fine people on the internet. And I mean it when I say all you fine people on the internet, because I think there's so much hate and division. I will add this too. The idea that and I've talked about this recently as well, I do talk a lot about I like this player, I like that player. It's usually there's an aspect of their game I like, and I don't think there's anything wrong with saying you like a lot of the players, because these guys have busted their asses to get to the National Hockey League. They are the best at what they do in the world, and I think most of them are excellent players. There are some who may reach the NHL that we scratch our heads about, but in general, that doesn't really happen. And I would say that with the way things are now with scouting, with all the advanced stats, with all the camera angles from everywhere, the guys who maybe shouldn't have been in the league back in the 90s wouldn't have made the league now, because there's just no way. The faults in their games would have been really, really obvious, and they wouldn't have lasted. But at any rate, there you go. Just from me to all you fine people, and at the time you're watching this, I probably on a ride in Disneyland. Nothing that makes me throw up. I'm not kidding about that. I have really, really nervous stomach, and any of those rides that really kind of go really fast and wheel. Like, I can handle speed, but it's when you're wheeling around a corner and you're doing a loop. My body says, you're not supposed to do this. This isn't right. And there's no way around it. There was one ride I went on the last time we went to Disneyland that it was a terrible decision to go on that ride. And I knew as soon as we were locked in and it started, I was like, oh, this is really fast and there's a huge turn coming. And then, oh no. And then I dry heaved when I got off of it. So, because every now and then I challenge myself and go, it's not that bad, is it? Yeah, it is. It is. It's the same as when the milk's bad, but you have to sniff it again just to make sure it's bad. Like, oh, that's awful. Is it though? Yeah. Oh, but is it? So anyways, there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And if you guys have anything to add, anything that you see in the comment section of, well, what he really thinks is, let me know. Because I'm sure that I didn't cover everything here. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And hey, thank you guys again for all your support. I will talk to you guys soon enough.